Hello and welcome to the Wednesday night Grumpy Sound Guy show. I am your host, J.R. Everhart, owner, operator, CEO of CLP Audio and Staging here in the metropolis of Inwood, West Virginia. We typically service the Mid-Atlantic, mainly the Baltimore, D.C. metro areas. That's kind of our wheelhouse. We go to Philly and Richmond every now and then, but it's usually the I-70 and 270, 695, 495 corridor, as well as Northern Virginia up and down the I-81 corridor as well. I'm giving you all this because I never tell you guys these things. And I'm getting a lot of messages of people asking me what my service area is. I probably had 4 or 5 just this week. So yeah, so we technically, also service Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to Harrisonburg, Virginia, up and down the I-81 corridor. There's several other guys that cover that area, as well as DC and Baltimore. There's a bunch of us, and still with a bunch of us, there's not enough of us to cover everything that kind of comes in. So today's video is really about the business side of this. That's why I'm opening up with my little sales pitch, about what we do: mobile staging, audio, and lighting. We are a middle market company. This content is directed toward middle market people. That is people who are doing shows from nightclubs and community concert series up to some low-end state fair, carnival, summertime festival sort of thing, church bazaars, church picnics, corporate stuff. We do some stuff downtown in DC and Baltimore, corporate-wise, as well. A lot of what we call talking heads type stuff, where it's basically public address and just providing sound reinforcement for meetings and conferences and things like that. So that's kind of our wheelhouse. We also do install, church install, system design, consultation, sales service of, just about anything under the sun in that middle market category. That's basically my sales pitch. As a company owner, we are working hard to earn your business, and we are definitely looking to put our best foot forward in everything that we do. We really go out of our way. We're going to have a lot of conversation today about money, so we really go out of our way to try and give people the most bang for their buck. As I'm going to talk about later in the video, we tend to custom price each event individually so that we're not overcharging people for something, and we're also not undercharging, so we ask a lot of questions. A lot of people want to make a 2-minute phone call to our company and get just a generic price as to what it is they want done. That phone conversation is always going to be at least 15, 20 minutes, because we're going to have a lot of questions to ask you about your event, so we know exactly what we're getting into and how to price that event accordingly. So yeah, today's video is all about business. It's all about bidding jobs and the things that you need to be thinking about when you're bidding jobs. Some of the ins and outs. We'll get into some of the surface level stuff, ins and outs of how to run a small production business, a middle market production business, business-wise, marketing and, all that kind of stuff and everything, and just how, you work for years sometimes to earn clients, and you can lose them in 10 seconds. There's going to be some of that conversation as well. Before we dive too deep into this, let me just take care of some channel business here. Please subscribe to this channel. Please share this channel with your friends that could benefit from this kind of information. Especially like, church production guys. That there's just not enough guys really online talking gut level stuff to church people. There's a whole lot of guys on YouTube here that really like to get on here and impress you with all their knowledge of gear and their mixed philosophy that in most cases really isn't based on anything outside of something they read on a forum somewhere. I really try to come to the table with real world experience and with what real world, kind of mentality, especially when it comes to bidding a job, bidding an install, and that kind of thing. All that stuff is super huge and important. And we're going to talk about as much of this stuff as we can today without, going for 2 hours here. This is going to be a long video. I'm going to warn you right ahead of time. You might want to save it for when you're on the road for your morning commute to work, or a time when you're in the shop and you can just put it on in the background while you're working on gear or something. or to, chomp it up in little pieces. I follow a lot of channels here on YouTube that have 2 hour long videos. Like, I'm a car nut, so, Vice Grip Garage and Power Nation and, all those car building channels. I love all that stuff. And I will literally sit in the evening and watch that stuff for hours at a time, Sometimes I'll watch 30 minutes of it and come back, later that day and watch another 30 minutes and then, so on and so forth. If you have to digest it that way, man, I'm not mad at you. Just give us a thumbs up on the video so we can, kind of count your head, for being here and comment. Dude, I really dig your comments, guys. I try to reply to every one of them, at the very least acknowledge it with a heart or a thumbs up or something like that. Even if you don't like what I'm saying and you don't like what we're doing here, that's okay too, man. I know I'm not going to make everybody happy. I'm just sharing the experience that I have learned to remind me of 35 years in this business and been very lucrative in this business for very long and have done very well for myself. So, channel business aside, you know what you need to be doing there. Do all the things. Let's dive in, guys. So. Just this week, I had 2 or 3 different guys get with me, wanting me to help them bid jobs. Now, this can be a two-edged sword. It's kind of like Applebee's picking up the phone and calling Olive Garden and asking them how they should price their menu. When you're asking your competition to help you price gigs that may or may not be, something they're competing against you against, there can be a conflict of interest there, and, but I kind of have a relationship, especially with some of the younger guys. If you're somebody who works for me, it's all good, man. But I mean, at the same time, you got to look at it from my perspective. The more I equip you to be independent, the more you're becoming my competition, So I am very generous, and I always try to pay it forward. And I didn't hesitate to answer with complete honesty, the questions that I was asked. I did have one guy ask me this week about some stuff that I didn't know, that wasn't part of my inner circle of people, that I just had to flat out say, look, I don't know you. I don't have a relationship with you in a way to where I'm comfortable with sharing these numbers with you. But, on the other side of that conversation, the guys that work for me that are just getting their little independent systems going, they're my people, man. They're my family. I love those guys. They dig in the trenches with me when I really need them. And they're not to a place yet in their career where they're bumping up against me too awful much. And if they are, it's okay too. There's enough to go around. I don't really stress out about that too much. But the flow of information is two ways. Because my question at the end of the conversation was, who's the client you're talking to? What event are you talking to? And I want to know that information for a variety of reasons. Number one, if I'm going to help you get work and teach you how to do this business, then I want an open flow of information, knowing what's going on at your event. It's a two-way street. If you want the inside information that I have, I want the inside information that you have. And as long as we have that kind of flow and we have a established relationship and you're someone I feel I can trust, hey man, it's all good. I'll do whatever I can do to help you out, excuse me. Some of these guys, just think that I'm like the customer service desk at Walmart or something. Like, every time they don't know what to do in this business, they want to call me and they want me to equip them in a manner to where they are directly my competition and they are directly bidding against me. And that's a conflict of interest. And I don't really do too much of that. I don't, especially if I really don't know you, or I know that you're someone who's talked smack about me behind my back, but you're dumb enough to think that information hasn't gotten back to me. Listen, let me let the cat out of the bag for all you cats. This is a very small network of people that run the whole Mid-Atlantic. And I'm sure it's like that in your market, whether you're in New England, Chicago, Texas, Florida. There's a handful of people that hold the keys to the kingdom. I am one of those people, okay? And I am very close friends with all the other key holders of the industry. We talk to each other. We talk to each other a lot. we openly share information back and forth to each other. We give each other jobs. We tell each other, about problem clients that have screwed them over, wrote them a bad check or something like that. We openly keep, it's a very awesome community we have here for the most part. I'll say 80% of the key holders that I consider my respected friends. We have that open flow of information, We know that we're going to bump into each other on bids. We know that we're going to bump into each other on trying to get work. And it's not personal, man. It's just business, A lot of times you're just selling yourself. And you're going to hear that theme over and over in today's video is sometimes a client will pay me more than they were paying you because they like my attitude better, or they like the way I do business. I'm extremely detail oriented. I am extremely turnkey kind of event sales stuff. When you hire CLP Audio and Staging, you write a check and we take care of everything. There's no stress. If there's issues on the production side, the day of the event, I'm not over there barking at the guy that writes the check about it. No, it's my job to solve those problems on site. It's my job to dip into what could be my profits on the gig to make sure the gig happens. I'm under contract for this stuff. I have many times been in situations where I lost a few dollars because I had to fulfill what was on the contract. That comes with the business, man. And if you're not prepared for that, then this isn't the business you should be in. But when you go around and out of jealousy or out of malice or whatever, fill in the blank with whatever toxic behavior or mindset, dictates this kind of behavior, and you go talking smack about me, 100% of the time it gets back to me. I had a really good friend of mine just tell me this past week that another person who has called in quite a many favors with me, went and talked some stuff behind my back. I'm not someone that stirs the drama pot because everybody's going to talk, dude. I get it. I know how this business works. It's not my first rodeo. But, when it's someone who claims to be your friend and when it's someone who claims to really have your back and really support your calls, especially when you're giving them breaks on deals or you're giving them first dibs to gear you could easily sell for a few dollars more someplace else just because you're a friend. Like I'm sending you a private message and letting you know this gear is available before I post it on Marketplace. And I'm going to give you a better deal because we're friends. And then when that guy tells a mutual friend that, those guys are starving to death all winter long. And, I buy gear from him in January for pennies on the dollar, because the guy's barely making it through the winter. Well, that could not be any further from the truth, dude. Let's all be honest. The wintertime is definitely the slow season for us because we make a lot of our big money in the outdoor gigs. But we're killing the club circuit all winter long. I mean, there's no lack of work. I have a very good life. You know what I'm saying? Like in the wintertime, I work 2-3 days a week and, pay all my bills and got money to go out to eat 4 or 5 times a week. I mean, I don't know where he thinks he is getting his information, and he knows that, or at least he should if he's paying attention. And it kind of hurt me a little bit that the guy, would say something like that about me. Hey, welcome to the music business, because that's as much of this as anything in this conversation is having to deal with people who expect you to help them make money while they're bidding against you. Now, you can be the guy who's just a complete jerk, and isn't friends with any of your competition, but I don't think that's, smart. But, some people are hard to get along with. There's a guy here locally that I don't even want to be in the same room with all the time, or any time. He's somebody who's done a lot of dirty, backhanded stuff to really not personally to me, but to a lot of the other local guys that are good friends of mine. I mean, dirty stuff, call up their clients and offer to work for pennies on the dollar and just, blatantly try to cut their throats and steal work. And I mean, horrible, ugly stuff. Look, I know it's the business world, and I know we're not in this to make friends. We're in this to make a living. I get that. Trust me, I get that. Especially in today's economy where everything costs 10 times more than it did 4 years ago. But I just don't we're a Christian business, dude. I don't like to do business that way. When I see that guy, I still smile at him, still say hello. I'm polite, that sort of thing. But that cat told somebody 6 months ago that I was trying to model my company after his. And I'm like, dude, I'd have to take $100,000 a year pay cut to model my company after you. I don't know what you're talking about. again, there's all these personalities that has nothing to do with bands and production. They're just people that you have to work with in this business that you have to navigate through. There's all kinds of social dynamics, all that crazy stuff. Is what it is, man. Is what it is. So anyways, one of my guys calls me, want me to help him bid a job. Hey, what would you do this job for? Blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a couple different things that go into bidding a job. First of all, ask a lot of questions. Dude, really, ask a lot of questions. Because the reality of this is there's so many clients who are only budget conscious, and they really don't know what they don't know. They don't know production. They don't know what it takes to do what they want done. They're just used to going to somebody else's event and seeing somebody show up, do it all, and leave, and they all think that like we're all living in some kind of party mindset here in the production business and got, groupies licking our toes and feeding us grapes backstage. And it's like, I don't know a whole lot of bands dealing with that right now, much less production guys. We're at the bottom of the totem pole with that stuff. And that's not what our world looks like at all, But, they're approaching you and they will many times play down their needs in order to get a low price out of you. And then when it comes time to advance the show the week before, well, now all of a sudden they have a long list of things that they need done. Now they have a lot of specifics. You know why? Because now they've had time to go to the bands, and the bands have asked them all the complicated questions. Usually when my clients tell the bands that they're using us, COP Audio, as a production company, that totally settles it right there. Because I know 90% of the bands that are worth knowing around the Mid-Atlantic, and they all know me. Even if we haven't worked together, they follow my content. They follow my Facebook, page, the COP Audio page, the website, the TikTok channel. I mean, we're everywhere, and they know the quality of work that we do, and they know that they're really in for a good time when they come out with us. They don't have to worry about anything. We're going to make it right. Many times when they get off the phone with the client, they'll pick up the phone and call me. Hey, dude, I heard you're working such and such event this weekend. Man, looking forward to working with you. And I'm like, yeah. And then we usually have an advanced conversation about an updated stage plot, input list, what has changed in your band since the last time I mixed you. Do you know anything more about the details of the event? All that kind of stuff. But ask a lot of questions. Ask about the load in and the load out. That's super important. We always joke in our company that we actually mix the show for free, because that's the fun part. We get paid to load in, set up, tear down, and load out, because that's where all the manual labor is. And there's a lot of manual labor to that. There really is. When the show's over, we're not backstage, sipping on White Claws and buzzing off the event. No, we're pulling cables and trying to get loaded up and get out of there, because we've been there for 18 hours and we want to go home. Yeah, that's what our world looks like, So all that is factored into how you're going to bid the job. If it's a festival gig where I've got multiple bands, the more bands they want, the bigger the price is going to be, because it's more hoops to jump through. Are they going to share back line? Is everybody going to at least share the drum set and maybe bass rig? Like I'm totally cool with switching out guitar rigs, from band to band. That's easy. It's a matter of moving a mic, moving a rig, setting up the other rig, and putting the mic back in front of it. I mean, it's, that easy. But having to set up and tear down drums between every band is time consuming. And these guys are trying to squeeze maximum amount of bands into a minimum amount of time, and makes the changeover times just absolute insanity. I always tell my people, if we're sharing back line, I need 30 minutes between bands. Now that may only take 20 minutes. That may only be a 20-minute changeover, but I want a 10-minute buffer in case something goes wrong and we need to troubleshoot something between bands. Or if I have a band, we've been on wedges all day because it's a cattle call gig with a bunch of different bands, and sometimes it's just easier to work off wedges throughout the day when you're in a multi-band situation. We may have a band that's now all ears. Okay, well, we're going to need to take time to get the splitter out. I usually already have a 32-channel split in place, so I can just give them my tail to their mixer, and then they can mix their ears independently that way. Well, that's going to take that extra 10 minutes. So yeah, 30-minute changeovers that way if you're sharing back line. If you're not sharing back line, 45 minutes. And if you're a promoter watching this, trying to learn these things about how to put on a successful organized event, those numbers sound insane to you. Like, why would it take so? I was at Ozfest and they were doing full band changeovers in 5 and 10 minutes. Yeah, you're right. They were also on, a $500,000 stage. Everybody showed up in tractor and trailers. All their stuff was already set on rolling risers with multi-pins from one drum set to the next. I've been at those shows. I've worked some of those shows. I know how they work. That's not how the middle market works, okay? It's just not. We don't have all those amenities that those guys have. So it takes longer to unmic the drums, remove the drum set up the new drum set, re-mic the drums, especially if it's more or less drums, or if they have more electronics going on behind the drums. Maybe one band's on tracks, the next band's not. Those are all things we got to troubleshoot from band to band. When you have the same drum set all day long, it really, really makes that stuff a lot easier. So that changes the price of the gig, dude. The other thing is distance. Where's the location of the event? Now, I give my clients a little bit of a buffer. I give them about a 25 or 30% buffer because I choose to live about 20 to 30 minutes further out than where most of my competition is in the city. That's on me. That's not on my client, So with the price of fuel the way it is and everything, for a long time, I never even charged extra, maybe an extra 20% on top of the price for fuel and vehicle maintenance and stuff. Of the final cost of the gig, maybe 15%, something like that to cover that. But for a long time, I didn't charge anything. Now I have to legitimately just charge accurate numbers. Like, I know if I'm going to Baltimore to do a gig, that's $100 in fuel, right there. That doesn't count, another 5% that should be on top of that for tires, brakes, tune-ups. The box truck that's sitting on the other side of the camera here is getting to go into the shop this week or next to get an ignition tune-up. That's probably going to cost $200, $300, $400. I don't know. We just did some driveline maintenance to this truck, and I think we were into that for, $1,200, $1,300 or something. That's all part of the cost, and even if you spread it across all the events that we use that truck on, it's still going to translate to 3 or 5% of the total cost of the gig that should be added on. I don't usually add that because I'm a little further out than some of the other guys working DC and Baltimore, and that's on me. It's not on my clients. I try to be lenient that way, but I have to charge a fuel surcharge. I have to, because the price of fuel is out of control right now, The box truck's gasoline, and it's like, I don't know, what is it, $3.50, $3.75 a gallon right now or something? When I'm pulling the stage with the Silverado, it's a 3/4 ton Duramax diesel. Man, those diesel prices are always floating around $4.15, something like that or whatever. I'm going to spend another $100 in that just round trip getting to and from the gig. Pulling the stage. So, when we have the box truck and the stage going out, and the box truck is pulling a rented generator, that drives drives up that fuel cost because it costs a few more dollars to tow something. All that's got to be part of the equation, man. It just really honestly does. Now, if it's just a one band event, like say the band is calling me, wanting to hire me for XYZ, kind of gig, wherever it is, I'm still asking questions, load in, load out. Location, are you on wedges or are you all ears? Because bands that are all inclusive ear monitors get a lower price than bands that are on wedges. Because if I have to pull 4 to 6 wedge mixes out, I'm basically setting up a whole nother sound system on stage. That is what it is. A bunch of old school guys thinks that's insane to have a different price for that, but they're old school and they haven't kind of wised up to the fact that, I'll say conservatively, 75% of my clients are all ear monitor bands. Makes life easier on them. Their mix is consistent from gig to gig, especially if they're all inclusive, which means they use their own mic stands, cables, stuff like that, their vocal mics, all that stuff. It sounds the same every single time they plug in. And they just give me a tail. Makes my life a lot easier. I'm basically doing racks and stacks in that situation. I am much more motivated to give that band a better deal when I am a band that I have to provide everything, which is not a problem. It's what we do. We could easily do that. We have 3 systems sitting right here behind me that can accomplish the everything full-on production thing. It's our mainstay. Audio is where we really kill at in this business. But that's just a different price tag involved in that. Especially when I'm pulling 4 or 6 monitor mixes, out of my rear end and having to set those up and manage those. Now, like I'll give you an example. I had a band contact me this week that was playing at a county fair, which meant they needed big audio, you know. I don't know what their time slot was because we didn't quite get that far as how much lighting they would need. I would think they would at least need a basic stage wash. And their budget, they're a 6-piece band, 6 monitor mixes on wedges, no ones on ears, full inclusive, package from me. I'm providing mic stands, cables, DIs, all the stuff, all the things. And they had a $600 budget. I'm like, you're out of your mind, dude. And when I told them what my minimum was, they're like, well, that's all our band's getting paid to do the gig. Okay, I feel you, but that's not my problem. You're the guy who sold the event for this. Production costs are steadily increasing all the time. And it's not my fault that your band manager or whoever bids your job for your band or whatever doesn't factor production into those prices in a realistic manner. Now, the guy they were typically using, I think, had COVID or something like that. I forget what the story was with that. But, they're like, well, he typically does it for $500. And I'm like, okay, well, then call him. Because here's what happens with that, okay? Those guys, I call them bottom feeders or ankle biters, however you want to describe them. Those $300 to $500 guys, they're never going to make it in this business. So unless they have a big time day job and they're just out kind of blowing their load every weekend in the club scene and they're about to party and they're drinking and they're drunk by the end of the night and all this other stuff. I had another band call me yesterday looking for somebody, for 2 shows this week. And he made the statement, he's like, everybody's expensive now. Every production guy is expensive. Everybody wants to charge what you're charging, JR. The difference is they don't bring the same product to the table. And he goes, I'm getting screwed. He's like, I'm having to pay your prices to these other guys who couldn't touch what you guys do on their best day. Couldn't touch what you're doing on your worst day on their best day, quote unquote. Excuse me. I was kind of just like, just listening to the phone call, dude. I'm not trying to talk smack about nobody. It's not how I roll. I'm just like, yeah, man, it's kind of a tough scene right now. It just is. There's a lot of guys out there doing sound. There's not a lot of sound engineers. There's not a lot of guys that really know what they're doing. And this band calling about the fair, apparently that's who they were using. A lot of those bands, if they even get the monitors close, the band's happy. They really don't even care what it sounds like out front. And you should care more about what your front of house mix is than what your monitor mix is. Because your front of house mix is what sells you to the client, sells you to the audience, and puts butts in seats. If that's not right, you can be belly aching and complaining about your monitor mix till the cows come home. You're not getting anywhere. It's not putting money in your pocket, and you're damn sure not building your band that way. You got to learn how to prioritize that stuff. It's all these old school guys. I always use this as an example. These old school guys who won't get off wedges because they don't like the way their gear sounds in their ear monitors. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, there is a learning curve there. We've done videos on in-ear monitors. Go back to the archive. It really ain't that long ago. Maybe a month ago, I think I did another in-ear episode on Wednesday night. And, learn all that stuff there. But, the reality of it is you're on stage trying to build the band and build your audience. Anything that you can do to make that job easier for the sound guy is going to be money in your pocket, But if you're choosing your production company based on budget instead of what your band needs and what your program needs, you're going to lose every time, dude. You may have a really cool event here or there. Or you may take that ankle biter sound guy into a club that has a built-in crowd. Like I can think of a whole bunch of waterfront clubs that are like that, where they could have had a DJ that night and had 1,000 people there. And then you show up at your first gig and there's 1,000 people there. Of course, there's 1,000 people there every Saturday night. You think they're there to see you, and now your budget sound guy looks like a freaking rock star. Meanwhile, usually the house guy is somewhere back here face-palming because your sound guy really don't know what the hell he's doing. Your front of house mix is horrible. The only reason the people ain't leaving the place is because it's the most happening place to be, and everybody's drunk. No one cares. Hate to bust your bubbles, but there's the reality of the business, you know? So those $300 to $500 guys, man, you get what you pay for, man. You know, you just do in this business. You know, I can't tell you the horror stories that I've heard from those guys that, you know, systems shutting off in the middle of the show, you know, get 2 songs into the first set and the whole ear system goes down because they didn't have power run correctly. They don't understand AC power. They're not running a distro. There's a whole variety of things they're not doing. Even if you're in a club where you're not using a distro, you don't understand electricity well enough to know that in order to get on 3 circuits, you have to get on 3 separate walls in the room because that's how a building is wired. See, that's something that a sound engineer knows that a sound guy does not know, okay? There's a difference between hiring a $500 guy and a $1,500 guy to do your club gig. What's it look like to your audience? That's really what counts. What's it sound like to your audience? That's what really counts. And if you're a club owner watching this, that should have value with you too. You club owners are the absolute worst for hiring the guy that is the least amount of money. And I see that in some clubs that have no reason to be paying guys $75 a night. They should be paying some guy $350 and $400 a night because the place is packed 5 nights a week. Really, that's just greed, dude, is all that is. All that has to factor into the world of trying to bid production jobs. It really does. You know, if I've got to travel 3 hours to Southern Maryland to do a gig, well, guess what? I'm going to have to add an extra $200 on that gig or $150 or something like that just to cover travel expenses. You know, there's going to be an extra, you know, stop at a convenience store meal somewhere in there because you're going to be gone for 18 hours that day. You're going to have to fuel up probably twice, at least once, and then top off, you know, or something like that. It's just more added expenses to being that far out of town. I'm okay with it. Look, dude, I love doing what I do. I will drive to Ocean City tomorrow. It's 4 hours away and be completely okay with that as long as the money's there. You know, if I've got to be that far out of town, okay, are we doing hotels? You know, can I at least get a bed in the, you know, the band house or something like that? Is there a meal involved at the club? You know, all that stuff has to factor in because those things add up. Look, I wasn't always where I am now. There were times in my life where I had to go do gigs for $500, especially back during COVID. I can remember doing some jobs for $400 and was just like, I was making like $200 at the most when it was all done and over with, and showing up in a $70,000 truck, pulling a $6,000 trailer with 60 grand worth of gear inside the trailer. And at the end of it all, by the time I had to pay $35 to eat at the club because there was no discounts given for a meal. And I don't even drink alcohol, you know, I'm drinking water and sodas, you know. And then, you know, pay for the fuel costs and all that kind of stuff. You know, pray to God that nothing breaks, you know, even if you lose a cable or two. You know, have you priced, you know, 12 gauge speaker cables these days? I mean, they're like, you know, a 50 footer's like $75 to $100 per cable, you know. Well, lose a couple of those and see what happens. You know, I'm in here during the week, you know, chopping, you know, bad ends off of them and putting new Nutrix ends on stuff, trying to save the cable and just lose a foot of length or something or whatever, you know, when that helps. We're doing everything we can do to save a buck on our end of it, but we have to have the tools to do what we need to do, and those tools are not cheap. You know, look on, you know, Sweetwater, Musician's Friend, Pro Audio Star, or some of these big online conglomerates, and just price out a basic little powered system and see what it's going to cost you. And there's guys who think about that off the top of their head. Okay, well, you're talking about 2 front of house boxes, 2 subs, and a mixer. No, really you're not, because if you need 6 monitor mixes, you need 6 powered speakers, wedges for monitors, if you're staying all powered. I'm kind of a passive guy for the most part. Then you need cabling for all that, and you need good cabling, not this junk, colorful bulk butter they sell on Evil Bay. You need AC cables to supply power around the stage. You know, all that stuff adds up, man. Speaker cables, XLRs, mics. I have 3, almost 4 full mic kits. I have 3 full mic kits. And each one of those kits, I don't even know, man, probably has $2-3 grand worth of mics and DIs in each kit. Do the math. Do the math. My XLR box is probably $2 grand worth of cables, easily. Not counting the box it goes in. Because that's the other thing. You need cable trunks and stuff to haul all the stuff in. Okay, well, have you priced cable trunks? A normal cable trunk is $600 to $800. I buy them on Facebook Marketplace used all the time. I drive like an hour and a half to go pick them up. I've seen a guy the other day down in Sterling had a whole warehouse full of ATA, cases, all kinds of crazy different colors. I bring them back to my shop, put caster boards on them and wheels, paint them black, and I put them in service for 10 years. It's the only way that you can, make a living in this business. This stuff is so expensive. Everything you do, man, everything you go to do is just crazy expensive. So you need a system, and then you need something to haul it in. There's the other thing. You gonna buy a cargo van, or you gonna buy a small box truck, or you gonna buy a trailer and then a pickup truck to pull it with, which is what most people do because it's the road of least resistance. It really is. Usually your vehicle insurance covers your trailer and that sort of thing. You're gonna need business insurance if you're gonna do it right. You guys have any idea how many people that you're hiring out there that don't even have basic liability insurance? Think about that for a second. So let's say you're doing, Harry's keg party in his backyard that you've been doing for the last 10 years. And you hire this guy for $300 to come out and do sound and lighting for it, and in the middle of the show it starts pouring down rain and somebody gets electrocuted, or there's a surge and it burns up your vintage tube guitar amp, or your $1,200 drum processor, or your $5,000 keyboard that you have, or God forbid a light rig or something fall down on a rack of Les Pauls or something like that. Dude, shit happens in this world, man. It just does. Murphy's Law will kick you right in the teeth if you're not prepared for it. If that guy don't have any liability insurance, dude, you're screwed. You're screwed. You're screwed. What are you going to do then? Does the guy even have a business license? Is he paying taxes like the rest of us? Dude, that tax money goes to our military and national security. It goes to state taxes, go to keeping the roads, up and bridges and things like all that stuff is important to getting to and from the show. I like nice, smooth roads to get to and from the show. You know what I'm saying? Like those things matter. They might sound cynical to you, but if you're really going to do this correctly, those are the things you have to have. You can buy $1 million worth of liability insurance for $25, $30 a month through nextinsurance.com. You're telling me that the guy you're hiring is such a lamazoid that he can't, at the very least, go and get a $30 a month liability insurance policy? Really? At least something to protect him? Yeah, it ain't the greatest insurance in the world, but it's damn sure better than nothing. And then there's the whole negligence part of that. You have less problems on these gigs with companies that are more reputable, not just insured and licensed and all that. On that level, everybody is. But it's also, are they going to set things up in a manner to where somebody's not going to get hurt? Because an insurance settlement is never going to bring back somebody's ability to be able to walk. If a light truss falls on them or a stage falls over on them, or, God only knows, if you didn't put a handrail up on something and they fall off of something and fall and break their neck and die or is paralyzed or, crazy stuff happens, dude. I think about those things when I'm setting up. I think about those things when I'm doing business because it's part of doing business, dude. Are you somebody that a client can trust that can, deploy your systems in a safe manner? Because look, we all make mistakes. Every single one of us make mistakes. And you better have insurance in place. And I always recommend having a savings account somewhere with $3 or $4 grand sitting in it or more, as much as you can get put away for just those occasions. So I'm telling you right now, I had a speaker fall over on a buddy of mine's bass guitar. It was setting up behind the speaker. And we were just in a hurry setting up and forgot to strap down a top speaker. And it fell 4 feet, It wasn't a catastrophe situation. It could have been if somebody's little kid would have been standing there. And don't think that I don't wake up in the middle of the night thinking about that stuff. But I mean, we all make mistakes, dude, and stuff happens. But, it was this dude's vintage 80s model Stingray bass. The first words out of my mouth on break was, dude, whatever it costs to fix that thing or to replace it or whatever needs to happen, I got you, man. I got you. No questions asked. And I was 100% cool. And we were probably 6-8 months or maybe close to a year before he really could get all that stuff taken care of. And thankfully, by the grace of God, there was no one's little kid standing there. That's why we try to keep kids away from the stage, by the way. And it cost me a guitar stand and some repairs to his bass, I didn't hesitate to pay it, and we're still friends to this day because of that. because I'm a stand-up guy and because, hey, look, dude, it was my fault. I screwed up. That's the first incident I have had in 35 years, though. I'll guarantee you this, we'll never forget to scrap down another speaker. My life on that. My life on that. Things happen, you know. None of us are perfect. And Murphy's Law likes to rear her ugly head and things, you know, as well. If you are not keeping up with your gear and you're not doing the things you need to do, people aren't going to call, man. So you have no right to demand this money, is what I'm getting at. You know, if you're a $300, $400, $500 guy and you're watching my videos and you're out here bidding jobs in my circuit for the prices that I'm bidding them at, and then you show up and don't deliver the quality that I deliver, brother, your phone ain't going to ring very long. You better get back into that $300 and $500, you know, range and hone your skills a little better and get your equipment where it needs to be before you start, you know, trying to run with the big dogs. Okay. There's so many aspects of this that you don't even know, especially you young guys. You just don't know what you don't know. You haven't been doing this long enough, and I know you all have that young person, you know, arrogance that you think you know everything because you got, you know, 150 gigs under your belt. Okay, I probably have 150,000 gigs under my belt, you know, in my 35 years of doing this. You might want to listen to what I'm saying, okay? I'm not trying to say anything here to hurt you. I'm trying to save you a ton of headache, and I'm trying to teach you how to make money in a profitable way and in an intelligent way as a business person, and portraying yourself, now this gets back to what we were talking about earlier, portraying yourself as someone that the client wants to work with. I was talking about this on the Musicians Cafe podcast about 3 weeks ago. Be sure to go back and look those guys up. They're wonderful. We did an hour-long conversation with me and talked about all kinds of things like this. And I was talking to them. It's like, you know, man, a lot of times you're just selling you. You know, I was at the Modern Drummer Festival in New Jersey several years ago, and Sean Pelton, who you would probably know best from being the drummer for the Saturday Night Live band, he was talking about how he got the Sheryl Crow gig. You know, he tours with Sheryl Crow and has toured with Sheryl Crow for many years. And he's like, man, you know, when they did auditions for that, it was a cattle call, dude. There was tons and tons of drummers way better than me, you know, going out for that. He's like, there's no way I'm getting this gig. But you know what? At the end of the day, Sean's a real solid meat and potatoes drummer, and you got to live on a bus with Sheryl Crow for 6 months. The dude said he probably got the gig more for being a guy that's easy to get along with than what he did by his actual drumming skills, you know. So there's something to be said for who you are and how you present yourself to your client. Are you putting your client's experience at the forefront of your mind when you're booking the gigs? I see so many, and look, I've been guilty of this a million freaking times. I'm practicing what I preach here, guys. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get this in its proper place in my own life. But so many times we can get bitter because of all the crap that we've been put through in this business, you know, screwed over, treated like dogs. You know, one of my best clients called me the other day about a gig, and he said, are you off Friday? I said, technically I'm off. He's like, what do you mean technically? I'm like, well, if it's something that I want to do, then I'll go work. But if it's not and I can't make money, then no, I'm not interested. And he just laughed. He's like, man, I wish I could live in your world where you can just turn work away. I'm like, yeah, it's a nice place to be. But that's my world. I don't do anything I don't want to do, and I don't do anything that I'm not going to make money on. Otherwise, I have learned at this stage of the game that if I'm only going to profit $150 or $200 for showing up with $100 grand worth of gear, I've said it. I'm saving money by sitting home, okay? Because if one sub driver blows at that gig, that's like $400 or $500 right there. Now it just cost me $300 to do this gig. Think about that. $300 it cost me to do the gig. You know what I mean? So if I can't have a measurable profit margin, it doesn't pay me to go do the gig, and it's not going to pay you either. You might think that, hey man, look, I'm building my business and I'm building my client list and I'll raise prices later. And look, we've all done that to a certain degree. But the only way that scenario works out is if you're crazy consistently good and you're a guy that people want to work with. You got a smile on your face, you bring good energy and a good vibe to the gig. When problems happen, your troubleshooting skills are stellar. You figure it out. we were mixing a national last year in a big indoor gig, and we had to run power distro. It was in a big club, but the power outlet, the 50 amp we were plugged into, was questionable. They've since fixed it, but at that time it was. And then they set a high top table right next to where it plugs out into the wall, and some big 400-pound guy sets it to the high top right next to the plug and puts his foot up on the plug. Ends up pulling the plug halfway out of the wall. I lose one leg of power in the middle of the opening band, lost half the sound system. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Well, within 3 to 5 minutes, we were able to troubleshoot that, figure out what was wrong, go get the plug back in the wall. Bam, the show was back up and going. We moved the table away from the wall, let the guy, understand that, hey, you can't put your foot on the freaking 50 amp electrical plug. And, the show went off without a hitch. But if you're not someone who understands and has that varsity level troubleshooting skill set, you really need to reconsider your price, man, till you get there. I know we're all trying to make money, and I know it's real easy, especially when you get a long run of really good gigs where everybody's praising you and worshiping the ground you're walking on. Everybody's asking you for your card. Everybody's online posting pictures of you and how good you are, and the band, gives shout outs to the production guy after every gig. Look, let me tell you a little secret, okay? Every band gives shout out to whoever if their production guy did a decent job, anything from decent to excellent, they're going to get online that night and they're going to give the sound guy a shout out. You know why? Because they're probably going to need you to answer the phone when their A guy's not available next time. And that makes you feel good. This whole business is about fluff. They know how to fluff your ego to keep you manipulated into doing business the way they want you to do business. And many times people understand that praising people costs nothing. This is where experience comes in, ladies and gentlemen. Praising you costs nothing. And if they can get you leaving the gig with a smile on your face, feeling like you're the best sound guy in the area, a lot of them guys will get on there and say that. Meanwhile, all of us A-list guys are looking at this like, I don't know, man. I mean, I haven't heard the guy mix in 6 months. Maybe something drastically has changed or whatever, but I know for a fact that guy's not all that, and I mean, I never say anything about that, but every single one of us A-list guys are face palming and like, okay, all right, whatever. I'm not hating, maybe you are all that now. Maybe the light has finally come on and you got it going on. More often than not, that's not the case, but hey, it is what it is. So check your ego, okay? Check your ego. Just because people are raving about you doesn't necessarily mean that you're the best sound guy in the area. It might mean because they need to keep you in good spirits in case they need you some point. That's how the music business works. It's all about networking. And when you get to a place where you can distinguish between people who are genuine when they say that and people who are just trying to manipulate you and use you, man, I know guys that are excellent. I mean, like should be politicians at this game. And they regularly get better prices from all their vendors than anybody else because they praise them constantly. That doesn't mean that their vendors are the greatest guys, and they know that. But for some of these bands, it's about the bottom dollar budget number. It's not about the skill set. If it's okay out front, if it's decent, we're okay. That's a win for them because then everybody else in the band got to go home with an extra $100 in their pocket. And all we had to do was tell the sound guy how great he was. Starting to get a real feel for how this business works? Look, people rave about me all the time. And I'm not saying that to have an ego because I have no ego. I know who I am. There's a bunch of guys out there that can do it as good or better than me. A whole bunch that can do it better than me, especially when you get up into the pro touring guys. I have no ego that way. I don't care about any of that stuff. People can praise me till the cows come home. I don't care, I know where my skill set is. I know I don't suck. That's what's important to me. But I appreciate your accolades. I appreciate, all your compliments. I'll take them. I'll make the most out of them on Facebook and on social media, just like everybody else does. But don't think for a second that is manipulating me into a mindset to where I'm going to start doing gigs for you to where I'm losing money. Because look, it's business. It ain't personal. It's business. I walked away from a very lucrative show 2 months ago. The bar contacted me about doing this gig 6 months ago or 4 months ago. I gave them a price. I said, this is the equipment list that I'll be bringing. They were fine and good with that. And then the week of the show, or 2 weeks before the show, a week and a half, The band leader calls me or contacts me and, advancing the show. I sent him the equipment list. He said, that doesn't meet our rider stuff. And I'm like, okay, well then, the bar owner's going to have to come off with some more money. I have all those things you need, no problem. We can do that, no problem. I want to do it. I want to work with you. Even if you're a challenging person to work with, I'm about making money in this business. It's all good. I can put a smile on my face and play the game just like everybody else. I don't hate anybody. I really honestly don't. But I am very protective of my brand, and I'm very protective as to how I do business. And if I can't make a profit, and if it's not something that's if it's not an opportunity to maintain the consistency that CLP Audio is known for, I'm not interested. If there's anything part of the gig that will keep me from doing what I typically do to deliver the results that I'm known for delivering, I'm not interested. I don't care how much money it is, because my brand doesn't deserve to take a kind of hit that way. It is what it is. So we go back to the bar owner. The bar owner's, obviously, I give her the new price. It's not, it's not comfortable. But what the guy's asking for really is overkill. His band is great. I have nothing against his band, love his band, but it's a little bit overkill, but it's how they like to do business, so that's okay. I'm not mad at you or whatever. And, she eventually came to the table and said, okay, I'll pay it. But before she sent me that message, the band leader then sends me a message about how I should give her a heavy discount because of X, Y, and Z, because they bring their own sound guy, because they supply some of their own mics or whatever, and that should warrant a discount. And it's like, those little handful of things that you're bringing to the table doesn't make my job any easier to do the gig. So, the price is the same for everyone on this level. Everyone who wants these things you're asking for, that price is the same across the board. I do those kind of gigs all the time. I can show you the contracts. So it's not personal. It's just business. At that point, my phone goes off. It's the bar owner, and they're like, yeah, we'll pay the price, no problem. Well, at this point, now I feel like that the band leader has kind of pooped in my Wheaties. And I'm not someone who has to take this gig. I'm not a slave to anything. Thank God, our company is established to a point to where we can draw those lines and those standards. You're already someone who's high maintenance to work with right out of the gate. Let's just be real. Let's just be honest, okay? Everybody knows it. And I'm not saying anything that everybody doesn't know about that particular band. But if you come at me trying to tell me how to run my business and try to tell me what I should be charging and what I shouldn't be charging, I don't come to you and tell you how to bid your band. I don't tell you that you're $1,000 more than what you're worth, or vice versa, whatever. I don't tell you how to do business. Don't tell me how to do business. So it rubbed me wrong. I told the bar owner, I'm not interested in doing the gig. I love you. I love working in your venue. It's nothing personal, but every time I try to work with this guy, it's some kind of drama, and it's this kind of thing, and he thinks he's going to tell me how to do business, and that's never going to work. And I walked away from the gig. I don't know who ended up doing it. And it was a week and a half out. I didn't have a contract for it. No one committed to anything, on those terms. I wasn't leaving anybody high and dry. It was just like, dude, this is just the way it's got to be, man. If I can't make a measurable profit, what he's asking for was going to add 3 more hours of load in and labor. I had to put a third guy on the gig. We got to take a bigger vehicle to haul gear, all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of work. I'm not going to wave a magic wand and poof, a full light rig with 10 movers is set up. When the original gig was 2 downstage wash lights or wash trees and boom, done. And for this gig, that would have been just fine. Tribute bands play there all the time with that, and no one ever complains. But because you think that you're better than everybody, you want X, Y, and Z. Well, dude, I don't even argue that. I'm not even saying you don't have the right to ask for that. You do. You have the right to ask for that. But I also have the right to not want to do business with you. I also have the right to not want to put up with your bull butter and your drama. So I tend to focus toward clients and give discounts to clients that are easy to work with, that play the game by my rules, because if you do, I promise you, your event will go way, way smoother. This is what we do for a living. So these are all the things that you got to remember when you're doing gigs. You just do. And you don't have to take every gig in town. I always say those two things. I never want to be the cheapest guy in town, because the cheapest guy in town is not going to stay in business very long, or his day gig is going to support his weekend habit, and he probably could, save money if he just became an alcoholic. It's honestly, it's cheaper to be an alcoholic than it is to run a production company. And then number two is, be that guy people want to work with. Draw lines in the sand as to who you're going to work with, and really take into account what your money's going to look like after the gig. There's a whole lot of people that will wow you with big numbers when you're talking about the gig out of the gate. But then when it comes time to actually execute the gig, you realize that, whoa, now wait a minute, this is going to take way more than what we originally talked about. And it's too late to renegotiate the deal, especially if you're under contract. That's why my contract's very, very specific. Very specific. And I make all my clients on big gigs that are contracted, I always make them pay me 5 days before the event. I want that check cleared in my account, or you're going to pay me cash at load in the remaining balance. Usually we've already gotten 50% down when we did the contract months ago, but the week of the show, it's usually 5 to 7 days before the gig. I need a check in my hand to give it 2 or 3 days to clear in the bank, and then that gives me money to be able to pay staff and to be able to do the event, to execute the event. And I know that we're getting paid, because I have done so many gigs, or worked with other guys that's done so many gigs, where they take a check the day of the gig, load in, execute the event, the check bounces on Monday. Or they were supposed to pay you cash when it load in, and they like, okay, ticket sales weren't what they were supposed to be. Now they want to come renegotiate the deal because they're losing their ass. I'm not in the business of taking that risk. That's on you. I'm no different than the tent guy you're renting tents from, the Blue John guys, the caterers. You're paying for services, you're paying for that date. If you cancel within 7 days, you're on the hook for 100% of it. And I have seen them guys stand there arguing with the client, and the client have to try to pay them what they owe them on 2 or 3 different credit cards, and just a complete mess, man, a mess. The clients that are worth working with will never give you an issue about paying you 5 to 7 days ahead of time, because they're going to understand that this is how the business works. Because guess what? If they're booking nationals, guess what the nationals are asking for? Payment 5 to 7 days in advance. They're not even going to get on a bus and head in your direction until the payment is cleared. Because this is a cutthroat business, and there's a whole lot of dreamers out here who have got romantic aspirations of becoming the next Bob Rock, concert promoter or whatever, and really have no idea what they're doing. And then if you get a weather event where it rains and no one shows up and your ticket sales go to pot, well, then guess what? You're going to be the first guy that's going to, get hammered on that, because you'll be like, look, nobody showed up. We don't have the money to pay you. Okay, well, you've already got staff in place, truck rentals, generator rentals. I mean, you have measurable overhead, in some cases $2,500, $3,000 just in overhead to show up and do the event. Who's going to pay for that? Am I going to look at all them people and say, oh, well, the promoter didn't pay me? Am I going to tell the rental company that? Oh, the promoter didn't pay me, so I can't pay you. And they're going to be okay with that? Come on, guys. These are the things you got to think about when you're bidding these jobs, man. You just do. Otherwise, you're not going to last in this business very long. I tell young guys all the time, whatever you do, don't start a production company. I mean, put a small little corporate rig together to be able to go downtown with your SUV and do little talking heads gigs or something. But anything bigger than that, you are just going to get your ass handed to you, because Uncle Sam don't make it easy on you, and this industry does not make it easy on you. There's a saying in this business. You know how you be a millionaire in this business? You start out as a billionaire. So there's that. Thanks, guys. I love y'all. I'll see you next week.